Hello, everybody. This is Barney Stroum, and welcome to my YouTube channel for So You Think You Know the Red Sox with Bernie Stroum. This week, we're going to review 1974, and my 1 week YouTube vacation is over. It really wasn't much of a vacation. I had a busy schedule, and the only way I knew how to handle it was to take a week off from YouTube broadcasting so I could get everything done, which I did. Played in an APA tournament, which I do every year, the Las Vegas APA Championship. Had a good time doing that. Took care of some mechanical problems on my car that needed to be repaired, and that's all taken care of. And so now we're back, and we'll have a regular schedule. We'll have this broadcast this morning, and then beginning Tuesday night, we'll get back to our Red Sox historical replay. In the meantime, we're going to discuss the year 1974 and what I remember about the Boston Red Sox, and some things I don't remember, of course, because I'm in my early 20s. In 1974, I actually got married for the first time. And we had a lot on our plate, but we did start to go back to Fenway Park in 74 after not going so much in 70, 71, 72, and 73 because out having a good time. Before we get started, let me just read what they say about 1974 in the Red Sox Journal by John Snyder. If you guys are looking for a book, this book is old. You got to get it on eBay. It's probably about 20 years old, but it goes and does a great write-up on every Red Sox season. Season in a sentence, it begins. In Darrell Johnson's first season as manager, the Red Sox turn a 7-game lead on August 23rd into a 7-game deficit during a late season collapse. Of course, that is what the Red Sox have been known for in my lifetime, and they continued it in 1974. It was a good team, but there were some things in this season that I remember well and will bode well for the upcoming seasons. Carl Yastrzemski is still the leader of this team at 301, led in on-base percentage, slugging, home runs. It wasn't a very home run-centric team. The leaders were Yastrzemski and Petrocelli. Holdovers from 67 with only 15. Yastrzemski also led in run scored. Tommy Harper was on this team, had 28 stolen bases. That's unusual. The Red Sox didn't have very many stolen bases throughout my lifetime up to this point. But Louis Tiant was the leader on the team with wins with 22, and he also was the leader in strikeouts, ERA with a 2.92 ERA. Anyway, those were the leaders. That was the season in a nutshell. And that's what came from that book. Let's talk about what I remember. Let me get my notes out, which I made the other day. Anyway, today we're going back to 1974. Season doesn't get talked that much about as nearly as 67 did, or 75 or 78. But it deserves really a closer look because the 74 Red Sox were not just another third-place team. They were a bridge. And that team got caught in between the holdovers from the 67 team, like Yastrzemski, Petrocelli, and they had players that were about to enter the scene that would be important to the Red Sox. Carlton Fisk, Tiant, Bill Lee were among those players, including Dwight Evans, Cecil Cooper, Rick Burleson. These are players that had nothing to do with the 67 team, but were about to explode onto the scene in the mid-70s. And, of course, next season, 75, the Gold Dust twins, Jim Rice and Freddie Lynn. So I remember this as a team in transition between the 67 Impossible Dream team and a much stronger team that developed. It didn't win anything, but 75, 76, 77, 78 were really strong years for the Red Sox. As I have a sip of coffee, I hope everybody's enjoying their Sunday morning. Anyway, the Red Sox, for a good part of the summer, were in first place, and it looked like this might be the year. On the morning of August 24th, the Red Sox had a 7-game lead. I looked that up. I didn't remember that, but I knew they had a big lead, but I didn't know the date. August 24th, 6 weeks to go in the season, they had a 7-game lead. They had the best record in the American League. I had been to Fenway Park several times. I enjoyed watching Louis Tiant spin on the pitcher's mound, look at second base before he threw home. Bill Lee also had a good year that year, but then again, the Red Sox entered September, and as I knew, along with all the other Red Sox fans, September has not been kind to the Red Sox in 1974 in previous years. The only exception, of course, was 1967. Let's talk about Louis Tiant. I think he was the heart of that team, personally. Tiant was established ace of the Red Sox. He's not just a pitcher, but this note I wrote down, someone called him, he was theater. He turned towards second base. He hesitated. The delivery looked all twisted, but he would pitch 150, 180 pitches a game. Can you imagine that? And he pitched a lot of complete games. He won 22 games through 300 innings. It was a great season for Tiant, and without Tiant, the team would have been absolutely nothing. He was one of the last old school pitchers, I think, where you give him the ball, you tell him to go out and throw, and he throws till his arm falls off. Louis Tiant. Let me see. My notes say on June 14th, 74, there was an interesting game with the Angels. I did not attend this game, but going back over the season, the Red Sox lost the game 4-3 in 15 innings. I remember reading about it the next day. I don't even think I watched it on TV or listened to this one of the few games I missed. That was a game between Nolan Ryan, who struck out 19 Red Sox batters over 13 innings that game, and threw 235 pitches. Tiant pitched 14 in the third innings of that game, and I thought I wrote down. I don't know the number of pitches, but he pitched 14 in the third innings. That's something that if you were around in 1974, you expected from time to time with pitchers like that. You will never see that today. Of course, a lot of starting pitchers come out in the fourth inning after they throw 100 pitches, but that was quite a game. The Red Sox lost the game, but the box score tells you exactly what baseball was in that era. It was tougher, slower, more patient, and it had a lot of endurance. Bill Lee won 17 games that season. He threw over 280 innings. Lee was a great pitcher, one of my favorites. He was always good for a quote in the newspaper. He was obviously, I'm not sure he got the nickname Spaceman yet, but he was out there. Let's see what else I have here. Reggie Cleveland, Roger Moret, Dick Drago, and Diego Segui were other pitchers that were on that staff. It was a pretty good staff, not a great staff, and once again, they were short of pitching, as that September proved. Carl Yastrzemski was still he was just beginning to enter the last 10 years of his career. He wasn't as good as 67. He was 34 years old, but he was still the leader of the team and still a 300 hitter and still a star on that team. He didn't carry the team all by himself. He needed a little help. Wasn't like 67. Rico Petrocelli was still there. He was playing short. He was playing third base by that time, as he had slowed up a step or two. Carlton Fisk gave the Red Sox one of the more interesting storylines in the season. 52 games he only played. He had 299 with 11 home runs. Fisk was one of the three All-Stars in 1974, along with Yastrzemski and Tiant. But today is June 28th, 2026. Well, that was over 50 some odd years ago, between 50 and 60 years ago. June 28th, 1974. I can still see this. I remember watching on TV. Fisk slipped on a mat. I think it was a mat on the on-deck circle. Had a serious knee injury, and he was out for the rest of the year. That killed the Red Sox. But Bob Montgomery came in and replaced him, and he wasn't nearly half as good as Carlton Fisk, who was having a gigantic season. Although Montgomery handled the pitching staff well, he just couldn't hit like Carlton Fisk. Fisk's injury was one of the turning points in the season, I think, anyway. Boston stayed in the race, but it was just a matter of time. They missed Carlton Fisk, and I think that was the number one reason that their September swoon, so to speak, cost them the pennant. Still in 1974 was the emergence of Dwight Evans. Dwight Evans was a young player in those days. He was not quite the big hitter he ended up to be late in his career, but he had one of the best arms I'd ever seen in right field in my life, and he could get to balls all over the place. He did, however, hit 281, drove in 70 runs, only had 10 home runs, so he didn't have the power he showed later in his career. But Dwight Evans became a permanent part of the Red Sox outfield for the next 10 or 15 years. That was the season that did it. Rick Burleson was played in about a little over 100 games. He was great at shortstop, hit 284. And Cecil Cooper, who the Red Sox had playing first base, had a good season. He hit 275. They traded him later on. I thought that was a gigantic mistake. Cooper went on to have a great career with the Milwaukee Brewers. Bernie Carbo was on this 74 team, and of course he's known for one of the most clutch home runs, I think, in Red Sox history, as he homered in the 1975 World Series that helped the Red Sox extend the 1975 Reds to 7 games, a team that was probably considered one of the best World Series teams in history. Let's see what else I have. Let's talk about September. In September, Jim Rice and Fred Lynn showed up from AAA in September of that year. Rice played in 24 games, hit 269, drove in 13 runs, and showed a lot of power. Freddie Lynn gave a real look at what you're about to see in 75, his MVP Rookie of the Year season. Lynn played in only 15 games, hit 419 with a 700 slugging percentage. You got an idea about what he was going to do in 1975, and you certainly got a glimpse of why the 75 team won the pennant. 74 had a lot of the seeds, particularly in September when Rice and Lynn came up. They had Evans in right field, and that was the outfield in 75. 74 was also the Red Sox were in a tough division, even though they lost. Baltimore, of course, was at the height of their dynasty, so to speak. They were dangerous. And let me see, what else do I have here? Do I have in my notes? Let me flip the page. They had a 7-game lead, I mentioned, on August 24th. Just under 2 weeks later, they had lost that lead, and it was all over as they continued to fall. There were some highlights at the end of the season, though. On September 24th, I noted that the Red Sox beat the Yankees 4-2 with Louis Tiant on the mound. And on September 28th, as the Red Sox were in an elimination game, Tiant pitched another game and beat him one more time. But Baltimore really finished first. They were 91-71 that year. Yankees finished second with 89 wins, and the Red Sox 5 games back of them at 84. They were 7 games back in total. That was quite a season, 74. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I was married for the first time, so I watched a lot of Red Sox on TV. I worked full-time, of course, so I didn't get to Fenway Park more than maybe half a dozen times. A big difference from when we talked about the 1960s when I was in high school, and I probably attended 40 or 50 home games. Didn't realize that was the last time in my life I was going to do that, and probably 6 to 8 games a year would go to Fenway Park. Any other notes I have here? Let me see. Tiant. Once again, Tiant's big season. I think that was a big turning point. Yastrzemski was still a 300 hitter. The Red Sox lost Carlton Fisk. That's, I think, the main reason they didn't survive. But the biggest news was Fred Lynn and Jim Rice showed up in September, and they were to lead the team in 1975 to the American League pennant. Rick Burleson was starting to play a good shortstop. Dwight Evans had a cannon for an arm in right field. He was a great player. The Red Sox had all the pieces in place ending 1974 to begin a 1975 season. And we're going to talk about 1975. That was a quick 15 minutes we just talked. We're going to talk about 1975 next Sunday morning. And to me, that was the season I was waiting for since 1967, although it felt a little different because the 67 team came out of nowhere. The 75 team had all the pieces in place when the season started, and it was just a matter of execution. But Fred Lynn in 75 was the American League MVP, Rookie of the Year. Jim Rice became one of the most feared sluggers in the American League. Louis Tiant, of course, was still a star. He has held it all together as the glue of the team. And Carlton Fisk also had another good season. Anyway, there's my 15, 16 minutes. I want to thank everybody for stopping by and listening to today's show. If you hear it on replay on YouTube, I want to thank you in advance. Anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful Sunday. We'll be back Tuesday with the continuation of my Red Sox historical tournament. We're going to continue on into the second round of our Region B and take a look at my Facebook page later today or tomorrow. We'll have all the information about that game up, and it will be at 7:30 Eastern on Tuesday evening. Anyway, have a good Sunday, everybody.